The former central banker later travelled to London to meet with Canada's head of state, King Charles, and British Prime Minister. James Bazina has more. It was a brief but significant visit aimed at strengthening Canada's ties with two of its closest allies, France and the United Kingdom. Canada's newly elected Prime Minister, Mark Carney, used his first official overseas trip to meet with the leaders of Britain and France, emphasizing the importance of long-standing alliances. Canada, a country with significant economic and strategic influence, has long been known as a close partner of the United States. It possesses vast natural resources, including oil, natural gas, minerals, and forestry products. While Canada remains economically linked to the US, the new government, under the leadership of Mark Carney, has signaled an interest in expanding partnerships beyond North America. The economic policies of recent years, including trade restrictions, have led Canada to explore alternative trade and diplomatic relationships. Against this backdrop, Prime Minister Mark Carney's first international trip to France and the UK highlighted Canada's commitment to global engagement. Carney, a former governor of the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, is well respected in international financial circles. His unexpected electoral victory in early 2025 positioned him as a leader with a strong economic background. While some anticipated a technocratic approach to governance, he has instead pursued a proactive diplomatic strategy aimed at recalibrating Canada's foreign relations. The fact that Carney's first foreign visit was to Paris and London, rather than Washington, was widely noted in global media. Headlines referenced Canada's evolving diplomatic priorities, emphasizing a shift toward diversifying economic and strategic partnerships. However, Canada has not distanced itself from the US entirely. During his meetings with French President Emmanuel Macron and British leaders, Carney discussed opportunities for economic cooperation. In London, he engaged with financial leaders, seeking to deepen Canada-UK financial ties. In Paris, discussions focused on potential collaboration in defense and technology, with Macron proposing joint working groups to enhance bilateral cooperation. These discussions suggest that Canada is exploring partnerships in military technology and economic sectors beyond its traditional allies. Carney affirmed that Ottawa aims to create a diverse range of defense and economic collaborations while maintaining strong ties with the US. Issues such as trade policies, tariffs on key industries, and evolving geopolitical dynamics continue to shape Canada's approach to international relations. While Mark Carney's government seeks to strengthen ties with European partners, Canada remains engaged with the US, navigating a complex global landscape. The question of Canada's independence in decision-making from Washington has gained renewed attention. Those advocating for reduced US influence in Canadian affairs strongly support recent policy shifts. Mark Carney is noted for stating, "While there are risks in the short term, we will not give in to unilateral impositions. However, it would be inaccurate to suggest that tensions are confined solely to trade matters." Speculation about Canada's reconsideration of its long-standing F-35 fighter jet purchase agreement with the US has introduced a new layer of complexity in Ottawa-Washington relations. While the Carney administration has discussed reviewing the $13 billion F-35 acquisition, this move has been met with concern in the United States. The F-35, developed in collaboration with NATO allies, is considered a cornerstone of joint defense efforts. The possibility of Canada reassessing its participation in the program has raised questions in defense circles, particularly amid concerns regarding software control mechanisms. Debate over the so-called kill switch issue has added to these discussions. Some reports have suggested that the F-35 software could potentially be controlled remotely by the US, prompting concerns about operational independence. While these claims have not been fully substantiated, they have fueled a broader conversation in Canada about national defense autonomy. The Canadian government has cited security considerations in its review of the deal, emphasizing the importance of maintaining control over its defense assets. Meanwhile, the imposition of additional tariffs by the US following Donald Trump's re-election has impacted key sectors of the Canadian economy, including automotive parts, agriculture, and energy. Washington has framed these measures as protective trade policies, whereas Ottawa has criticized them as economic pressure tactics. In response, Canada has accelerated efforts to strengthen trade relationships with European and Asian markets. Carney's recent diplomatic engagements, including meetings with French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, have signaled a strategic effort to diversify Canada's international partnerships. Sources in Ottawa have indicated that preliminary agreements on energy and defense cooperation with European nations are being explored. There is also speculation that Canada is considering alternative defense procurement options from European manufacturers. However, no official confirmation has been provided regarding secret negotiations with German and French defense firms. While these developments suggest a shift in Canada's defense and trade policies, they do not indicate a complete severing of ties with Washington. Instead, they reflect an approach that seeks to balance national sovereignty with existing alliances. Macron, while refraining from directly commenting on US-Canada tensions, has emphasized the importance of stable supply chains and cooperation among strategic partners. Similarly, Starmer described Canada as a close ally of the UK, highlighting shared history and values. Carney has firmly rejected claims that Canada is seeking external validation of its sovereignty. "We don't need another country to affirm our sovereignty. We are sovereign," he stated. His upcoming visit to Canada's Arctic coast is expected to reinforce the government's commitment to national security and territorial integrity. The recent US tariffs on Canadian steel, aluminum, and agricultural exports have played a significant role in Ottawa's policy recalibrations. As tensions evolve, the Canadian government continues to navigate its position between maintaining strong historical ties with the US and asserting greater independence in its economic and defense strategies. For decades, Canada has been a stabilizing supplier to the US economy, providing oil, natural gas, minerals, forest products, and technological components. These resources have flowed from north to south, supporting American industry, supplying refineries with raw materials and filling market shelves. However, recent US trade policies under the Trump administration, with a protectionist approach, have put pressure on Canada's economic ties with its southern neighbor. Mark Carney expressed concerns about this approach, stating that if Canada faced restrictions, it would explore alternative markets. In response, Ottawa began considering options such as shifting energy exports to Europe, forming new trade agreements with the EU and the UK, and expanding sales of petrochemical products to Asia. This move signaled a strategic shift toward economic diversification rather than continued reliance on the US market. Discussions also extended into defense policy, where Canada has historically collaborated with the US, notably through investments in the F-35 fighter jet program. Debates in Ottawa have raised concerns about whether the F-35 jets contain a software-controlled mechanism that could limit their functionality. While US officials have not confirmed such claims, the Canadian government has sought clear technical assurances. Without definitive guarantees, some officials have questioned whether continued investment in the program is in Canada's best interest. Trade tensions between the two nations have also escalated, particularly regarding tariffs on steel, aluminum, and auto parts, which have made Canadian exports to the US less competitive. In agriculture, Canada has pushed back against US claims of protectionism by highlighting American farm subsidies as a factor affecting fair competition. These disputes have strained relations that were historically stable. Carney emphasized that while Canada remains open to negotiations on trade, energy, and other sectors, it will not yield to unilateral pressure. Instead, Canada is strengthening ties with Europe and Asia. The country has also reiterated its sovereignty in the Arctic, where melting ice caps are opening new trade routes. Disagreements have emerged as the US views these waters as international, while Canada asserts territorial control. Amid concerns over defense cooperation and trade restrictions, Canada has considered expanding its defense partnerships with European nations. French President Emmanuel Macron has expressed support for closer cooperation, and post-Brexit UK has also shown interest in new agreements with Canada. These developments align with Canada's broader strategy of diversifying economic and defense relationships beyond the US. The US government may respond with further trade measures, including potential tariffs or import restrictions. However, Ottawa has made it clear that it is prepared to retaliate if necessary, signaling a more assertive stance in protecting its economic and strategic interests.